At the foot of Songsan Mountain stood a martial arts school, where Master Xuanzhen was a renowned martial arts expert far and wide. Early one morning, he was going to teach his disciples a supreme skill Ji Shan Dian striking a cow through a mountain, and he specially emphasized, this move relies on intent, not brute force. Master Xuanzhen demonstrated the opening stance to his disciples. He cupped his hands like holding a ball and sank his chi to his dantian, which looked rather plain and unremarkable. His eldest disciple, Ali, couldn't help muttering, this stance doesn't seem all that powerful. Then the master walked over to a wooden stake wrapped in thick cotton cloth and gently patted the cloth with his palm. Strangely enough, the cloth didn't move an inch, but a crack snapped across the stake behind it, leaving all the disciples dumbfounded. When it was the disciples' turn to practice, Ali, the eldest, gathered all his strength and punched the cotton cloth hard. The cloth caved in, yet the stake remained completely still. Gasping for breath, he asked the master, why can't I do it? The youngest disciple, Oren, didn't rush to practice with brute force. Instead, he first pondered the internal energy the master had spoken of. He practiced directing his chi toward a teacup on a stone bench, and before long, the teacup actually began to sway slightly, and ripples formed on the surface of the water inside. A few days later, Oren demonstrated his progress in front of everyone. Calm and composed, he pressed his hand on the cotton cloth and exerted a gentle force. The stake immediately split into two pieces, while the cloth remained intact. Ali's jaw dropped in shock. The master explained the secret to everyone, saying, the core of Ji Shan Dian is transmitting force through a medium it doesn't depend on reckless, brute blows. Ali, you only focused on using raw strength instead of cultivating internal energy, so of course you failed. Ali quickly bowed his head in apology. Following the Master's method, Ali started practicing again. He calmed his mind, gathered his chi in his dantian, and when he patted the cloth this time, the stake actually shook a little. He shouted excitedly, it works, and finally realized that clever force is better than brute strength. One day, an old farmer came to seek help, saying his ox cart axle had broken and he couldn't transport his grain. Using the clever force from Ji Shan Dian, Oren gently pushed through a wooden board, and miraculously, the broken axle fit back together perfectly. The villagers all clapped and marveled at his skill. In the evening, the master and his two disciples were chatting. The master said, Ji Shan Dian is not just a martial arts trick, it's also wisdom for living. When facing problems, you should use wit to break through predicaments instead of relying solely on brute force. Ali nodded hastily, vowing he would never be aggressive or reckless again. The old farmer spread the story of Oren mending the axle throughout the village. Everyone gathered at the threshing ground to listen, exclaiming in admiration, this Ji Shan Dian seems mystical, but it's actually true wisdom far better than mindless hard work. A private school teacher also heard about the incident and told his students, Ji Shan Dian relies on clever force and internal energy. The same goes for studying. You need to understand concepts and find the right methods instead of just memorizing things by rote. A vendor at the market had his cart stuck on a stone. No matter how hard he pushed, it wouldn't budge. When Oren passed by, he lightly tapped the cartboard with the clever force from Ji Shan Dian, and the cart moved easily. The vendor kept saying, this method is so effective. Later, the martial arts school took in new disciples. The master, along with Ali and Oren, taught them together, always repeating, strength comes from the heart, and wit overcomes clumsiness. Ali often told the new disciples not to repeat his mistake of relying only on brute force. Key takeaway. Ji Shan Dian is not an illusionary martial arts move. Its core is triumphing through wit and using force to counter force. It's not just martial wisdom, but also a life lesson. When facing challenges, don't resort to brute strength. Find the right method and learn to adapt, and you'll achieve twice the result with half the effort.